The Swamp Thing, issue
Mm-hmm.
14, Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on the art, and sometimes you just like you have an all timer on your hands, and you realize it at some point during the run, and I'm just happy that I realized it was one of the best books I've ever read a few issues before the end, so I can really savor these last few issues
Yeah.
and like appreciate them for what they are.
I'm so glad this got the extra 6 issues.
Oh yeah,
Because like, if it would have ended at the 10, it still would have been great. But these last 3 issues?
Knowing what we get in these issues now, though, and the fact that I think they're even better than those first 10, like in hindsight, those first 10 are incomplete without the rest of it. We wouldn't have known that if we'd never got to read the rest of them. But
but just what Ram V and Mike Perkins are building here, it just feels like a new status quo. With Swamp Thing,
it's just exploring so much. I love all the ideas. I love the big, like almost cosmic style ideas they're playing with. Like, so the end of the last issue was these plant life forms like show up in space, and Hal comes down to get Levi, and he goes up. I loved it because he's like shielding Levi in space with his ring that he's kind of got a Green Lantern outfit on.
It's very Kyle-esque too.
Yeah. But basically, he sends him in. He uses whatever connection he has to the Green Left to turn into. It's basically just a little bit of like a dandelion.
Dandelion seed, kind of like when you make a wish and scatter him to the air. Yeah. Is what he's focused his energy to.
It's just a little bit of that, and he goes into one of these plant-like things, and it becomes this sort of debate. It's just dual narration as they're talking to each other. I love that Levi's narration box becomes the Swamp Thing color. Because technically he's in plant form, even though he's not a full Swamp Thing. And he just starts talking and try to convince, because they're here to fight this war. The Green has called in these reinforcements to help fight this war against, the
Parliament of
Gears and whatever else that's come from man's world. But even just like man itself, like humans themselves are kind of like going to be exterminated because they are. As is discussed here, kind of a cancer to the planet. And while it's natural, while they're not an alien thing, that's one of Levi's arguments is, well, this isn't an alien force that came in and like changed things. This is something that grew naturally from the planet. But then this alien being, Zetar, says, well, yeah, but so does cancer. Like, cancer grows from mutations in what's already there and destroys and kills. And then Levi says, yes, but so does evolution. Like, that's mutation. And so there's this really interesting philosophical debate about, do humans have the right to continue to exist even though like they've kind of ruined things? But what's always been interesting about Swamp Thing and the idea of the red, the green, and the raw is that they all kind of need each other. There just has to be balance.
It's a balance.
What I really liked later on when it cuts to Pale Wanderer or whatever we're calling him now, and he's like, building his like core Parliament of Gears factory that's going to spread out and consume the desert and eventually the planet and turn it into a big robotic orb, right? When he's talking all about that, he does acknowledge that by the end of all that, he does have to have the others to still exist. He's the mechanical world, the industry, it needs commerce. It needs commerce. Right. That's the important word, though. I think is important. Is that the industry only functions if it gets to serve something, like if there gets to be like an exchange and like something's given back to it. I mean, it says its core goal is to perpetuate, which like all life, I guess. But that is so fascinating to me that it needs to take over. They're going to win this war, and he's going to take on like Levi's brothers, the warrior, the Green, building axes and taking on these weird mech monstrosities, which I love the design of, by the way. But at the end of the day, they still need the red and the green to exist because they need to actually exchange with someone. So even industry needs the other forces to exist in some capacity.
It's I always say this right. The commoditization of nature. Right? It only has worth because you need it, right? It's not like, so when you go back to the beginning of the book in Levi's origin, where he went to what was it?
India. Huh?
In India, right? But the national park, which is like one of the largest.
Okay. I'm never going to remember that, but yeah.
Yeah. It starts with a K, but it's one of the world's largest national parks, right? And the argument with national parks is we need these wild places to still exist, right? We still need nature, but people still want to build on them because, oh no, but there's resources there and stuff. And so like through the Parliament of Gears and industrialization, it's recognizing like, yeah, we need those trees because we need those trees to become wood. And then that wood, we can build more. Like you said, it's a self-perpetuating thing where stuff only exists because it has value. And when the value is not seen and it's deemed worthless is, so the fact that the green and the red and everything has value, but it's not, the pale pilgrim, is not being fully, I would say, not just honest, but it's not the full picture.
It's not, natural and sort of relates to the real world, the idea that industry takes control of everything. And then to go back to Swamp Thing or Levi, like, debating with this life form, is that it basically, talks about how, because there's these images of like gravestones and the idea that people go back into the earth and that helps grow more green. You see the flowers sprouting on the graves, next to the gravestone. You see how the green is used in medicine and like a syringe with a baby. It's this idea that there is kind of this give and take, and there is like giving back to the green in a natural sense that maybe, obviously the balance isn't there right now. That's why the green's not particularly thrilled with humanity. But, this alien being takes on a new name because the previous one doesn't suffice anymore, and now calls himself Endeavor. We should call you Endeavor, as what Levi says to him. And Levi puts a call through to Hal and says, "Look, I'm taking one of these alien beings down into the heart of everything to try and fix this." And it comes down like a shooting star. And who's like nearby but Trinity, this being that was created from the nuclear stuff, is watching and is still like trying to find her place in all this and like where does she lie and what her choices are going to be. And that's when we get the glorious panels of like Levi's brother Jacob fighting like this weird mech monstrosity with like a core in the stomach. It's gorgeous stuff. It's this otherworldly stuff.
Mike Perkins is still working top notch.
Absolutely. And then the next page has like the fight happening in the silhouette, and just like every time Trinity showed up, she's looked really cool with the glistening and the sparkling and the.
That's what I'm saying. There's like a translucence to her but it's still opaque. So it's like the light is being refracted through her, and there's just a way. I don't know how Perkins is doing it or if it's the colorist, but it looks awesome.
Yeah. And she talks about the angel above hovering over, referring to Hal coming down. So she's observing all this, and the big ending to the book is that Levi says he's not strong enough to like give this, Endeavor the power to really like grow and sprout and fight this and like sort of change something. What was it? I need more strength, but the green has none left to give. Endeavor is speaking to its ships, filling their mind with doubt to make it them, reconsider that there's here to fight the way they were going to. And basically, Jacob's taken all of the green's strength to fight this fight, but you can see in that panel that Jacob's starting to struggle, that he's getting like beat up by the mech thing. So Hal is like, so you need the will to like do this, and so sure enough, actually, just to sort of play in the words, Hal says, "Can you stop this?" And he says, "I will." That word's really important. So Hal says the oath, and basically channels all of his Green Lantern energy into Levi. So we see him as full Swamp Thing again, but he's got a Green Lantern symbol on his chest because he's being fueled almost entirely. He's still connected to the green through that one little connection that he's got, but he's being fueled otherwise completely by Green Lantern energy, which is a cool visual. It's almost a shame the cover had to like spoil it because that's what it is on the cover. It's a really cool cover, but it does kind of spoil the ending.
But and just the whole idea too of Will and like the idea like everything. When people talk about the environment now, there's always just this pessimistic, it's too late, right? But with that attitude, of course, it's too late. So I like that Levi here, by talking to this alien planet that came to help out the Earth, right, is, there's that doubt that no, we can rise above this, right? And that with the right willpower, you know, with it directed in the right direction, that we can overcome this. And yeah, I just the story within the story here is something Ram V has always been good at since we've been reading, especially with Swamp Thing. So just all that here, and just the idea of the Parliament of Gears watching as this happens, you know.
Yeah, just honestly, just the idea that this war's being fought between the Green and the Gears, or sorry, the Green and the Industry, because the Parliament of Gears is to the Parliament of Trees, whereas the Green is to the Industry. Like this war taking place as Levi's trying to convince this alien plant life form to help rather than just like kill everything, because you know, to take the Earth back effectively, is really fascinating. And it feels epic, it feels big, it feels cosmic, the way this is going on, and the idea that he's trying to convince and like use human compassion and logic to try and convince it, no, we can coexist with the Green, we should coexist with the Green. And yeah, the obvious environmental messaging that you can sort of like take from that like makes complete total sense. But then on top of all this, you know, what we talked about the last couple of issues with Trinity is this idea that Trinity hasn't really decided yet. Like, she can be this, like, the most destructive force that's ever been known, or she can be this force for good, in the sense that she can be energy. She can, you know, nuclear power in many ways can be used for good things, but she's not decided yet. She's so indifferent to, like, will I be a force for good or a force for bad? So the idea that this moral debate's taking place with this green life form, will Trinity see this and be inspired? Will she be kind of the real linchpin that stops this war, you know, in the following issue or the final issue? We've only got two left, but I'm super excited. The stakes feel like so high. Like, I can't imagine now not getting these last 6 issues after that first 10, because this feels like what the whole point is this last 6 issues.
Right, and I remember Ram V saying that too, is like, it's really going to come together with those last 6 issues. I mean, if it just stood alone, those first 10 would have been fine, right? But it wouldn't be this, like, we would still really enjoy it and we'd recommend it. I don't know if it would be up there.
It'd be really good, but it wouldn't be this special.
Right. And it's funny, though, too, because, like, Alan Moore worked both on Swamp Thing and Green Lantern around the same time. And I feel like Ram V's was like, you know what, I can work those in together. You know, and just the way that Trinity looks up, I think it's hilarious, too. That the way that Trinity looks up at Hal and calls him an angel, when you know she was created at the Trinity Sands, you know, bombing range, where pilots like Hal, you know, were dropping these bombs. I
think the other thing, obviously, there's the obvious color thing here, where obviously the Green Lantern energy has nothing to do with the green, as you know, as Swamp Thing knows it, but it looks cool, and it's still the right color when he, you know, puts all his energy into him. But I do think there is kind of an interesting like comparison with Green Lantern, in that the green light in the Green Lantern sense, and the spectrum of colors, represents will, which kind of represents like what humans have and use to actually do good, and potentially do bad as well. But the idea that the green, like, so the idea of using Green Lantern as like this comparison point is that green, in that sense, is also this force for good. It's a very different force for good, but there is I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say here, but it's making sense in my head. I know what you're
trying to say is that with the fact that they're both green, right, on that top level, right, on that shallow level, it was like, yeah, Green Lantern, Swamp Thing, they're both green, but also the fact that with will, we can alter things, right?
I guess what I'm trying to say is that, but try to prove to the green that humans can have good, is the idea that there's naturally a thing in them that then correlates to the color green, is kind of symbolic to the green that, oh, there's good in human beings. Like, I don't know,
it's the potential.
It's making sense in my head.
I know what you're trying to say, but yeah, and just this, it made me miss Green Lantern so much, because this is the type of stuff that I loved with the character, stuff like this. And not so much the space cops or the big cosmic things, but kind of these smaller stories where they pop in and, you know, serves as a different
story. This is like some of the biggest scope and anything.
What I mean by a smaller story is this isn't Hal and the Blackest Night. I love the Blackest Night, and he even brings that up here that in the Blackest Night, you know, you gotta have the will and all that. But like he's here to assist, you know, this type of thing. But yeah, one last thing too, that double page spread where you bring up how the humans can live with the green.
Yeah.
And it's done with a DNA strand that is green and red, just showing how intertwined they all are. It's just a masterful piece of storytelling, right? And you follow that double helix down, you know, as you're reading the page, and it really works out. It's a really cool layout. Had to shout that out, Mike Perkins.
Yeah,
doing a lot.
Obviously the art here is just phenomenal across the everything. Like there's so many distinct pages in this book, and just the color schemes, particularly when you get to like, okay, here's the Parliament Magiers, like they're like sort of base, and it's like, you know, this factory with the red sky above it. It's really ominous, and then you've got all the contrast with the green when they're at war with them. But then you've got the contrast with the purple that sort of surrounds Trinity whenever she seems to show. I mean, she's green, but there's always purple around her, and this kind of like star glitteriness to it. And you know, and like just throughout the whole thing, there's just such atmosphere. Everything feels even bigger than it is because of kind of this ethereal quality to the ideas in the art. And the art is constantly backing that up. It's a perfect marriage. It's you know, reading a book like this is you just kind of get this special feeling that you just don't get that often, and yeah, so I really can't do nothing but praise, honestly. Yeah, I mean, the like honestly, the only critique I can say is that it wasn't as good as that issue that I gave a straight 10 to a couple issues ago. Like that is like the most negative I can get, is that it's not quite just as the perfect, oh my god, this blew my mind, but it was amazing and felt great the entire time. Everything just felt like the word ethereal is definitely, and I think all my favorite Swamp Thing has kind of an ethereal or like, because you know, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, whenever Swamp Thing starts narrating and he's talking about like the green and life and death and wanting to live or die and all that stuff, there's this kind of just quality to it that feels otherworldly in a way that feels I'm trying to use a word that's other than ethereal, but that's basically what I'm getting at. In a way that really clicks with me, and in a way that a lot of magic-y stuff doesn't. Even though you could argue that this is kind of like a fantasy thing, it does feel different to me. But you know, that's splitting hairs, I suppose, at that point. But no, wonderful stuff. All right, what are you giving Swamp Thing 14?
I'm giving this one a 9.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 9.5. I'm going as close as I can without giving it the 10, because I got to hold back a little bit, but I am super excited for these last 2 issues now. Super excited. So.
Yeah. Also wanted to shout out the other Green Lantern that shows up with Hal. Is that plant Green Lantern?
Yeah, the one with the what do we call it? The broccoli head.
Yeah. So I thought that was a fun appearance, because he's also a plant-based form, you know. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, should call having to talk to the plant things. maybe they did that. Maybe that's why he's so close by, because they did that first and then it didn't work.
Yeah, Levi was closer.